Oklahoma is the land of second, third, and last chances. Who were the people that made it so? The Red River Institute of History, johnjdwyer.com, me, Gwin Faulconer-Lippert, and our signature sponsor, Atwood's Stores, present Oklahoma Gold. Together with our Will Rogers Medallion-winning author-historian John J. Dwyer, we'll stitch the golden threads of Oklahoma history. It's Oklahoma Gold. Dignifying our history with the stories we learn, building on a dream. John J. Dwyer, what's this story?
Audacious, imaginative Walter J. Edwards and his wife Frances Edwards did not know the meaning of the word quit, Gwin. An African-American Mississippi native with a fifth-grade education, he migrated at age 16 from harsh conditions in that state in 1907 to Wellston. He labored for years as a sharecropper. Now, sharecroppers worked other people's land, received a percentage of the crop that they helped harvest, usually by grueling manual labor. James Johnson, an Edwards grandson and a respected 21st century Oklahoma leader himself, said that the viability of that work for sharecroppers was diminishing with the onset of farm mechanization as well as worn-out land. This fatefully drove Walter Edwards, his siblings, friends, and many other blacks to bigger cities in search of better opportunity. Walter Edwards moved southwest from that small community of Wellston to Oklahoma City in 1915 while in his mid-20s and went to work for $9 a week as a handyman in a scrapyard, otherwise known as a junkyard. But according to his grandson Johnson, Walter Edwards, though possessing only a fifth-grade education, was an astute, streetwise, self-learned, self-made man. And an encouragement to all of us who might be frustrated with starting on the bottom rung of an organization, Johnson recalled that his grandfather, quote, observed the business, learned it, worked like heck to make himself valuable to that business, confident all the time that there was a future for him in some other business. Before the word was even coined, he had thoughts of being a serial entrepreneur, Johnson said, end quote. Well, Edwards also recognized the ups and downs and cycles of capitalistic business and determined that he did not want to be limited to or to derive all his income from one source. Always, however, he fueled his ambition with hard work. By the 1920s, he owned his own junkyard and other enterprises. Then the 1929 stock market crash wiped out Edwards financially. He retained a couple of assets, though, his own shrewdness and energy and a junkyard he had owned and run for years. Plus, he hired Frances Waldrop, a widow with 2 children, as his bookkeeper in 1930. It was the greatest decision of his life at one of its most difficult junctures. Frances, you see, was also a talented and accomplished real estate saleswoman, a rarity in that era of Jim Crow segregation for a black woman. When Walter and Frances realized they'd both harbored dreams since childhood to utilize their talents to better the lot of their fellow blacks in that racially prejudiced era, they married. Frances's astute financial sense, property knowledge, and overall judgment helped Walter avoid any repeats of his 1929 travails. Throughout the 1930s, the Edwardses witnessed the geographically limited and usually substandard homes available for African Americans in Oklahoma City, even as the black population grew both from within and without. They couldn't buy a home farther north than Northeast 2nd, James Johnson said. Then it was Northeast 4th Street, and so on. In 1938, the Edwardses shrewdly persuaded white, Tuttle, Oklahoma landowner C.T. Hassman to plat a little-noticed 15-acre tract of land that they were purchasing from him on the northeast periphery of Oklahoma City, and then to submit that plat himself to the Oklahoma City Planning Commission before the sale was executed. Why? Well, the Edwards planned to build a new housing addition for blacks on the site, but they feared the Oklahoma City City Council might object to the proposed development if the Edwards submitted it due to, quote, Negroes being involved in this aspect of real estate development, end quote. Hasman graciously agreed, and the development, named Hasman Heights in honor of this white man who had risked significant peril for himself in taking the steps he did, was approved. Francis Edwards' real estate expertise, and Walter's hard-won acumen with building materials and other products from his junkyard experience proved a dynamic combination as they set about developing their new Edwards Housing Edition. It catered to successful middle-class African-American professionals, including lawyers and doctors. But the Edwardses also aimed to make the dream of homeownership a reality for more humbly employed blacks. They boldly sought Federal Housing Administration, or FHA, construction and mortgage financing for the many folks in their community who had no access to such avenues. They faced both local and federal opposition from agencies who feared such loans would eventually default. Then Realtor Francis herself went to Washington, D.C., and confronted face-to-face the officials who wielded the critical authority that was stonewalling FHA financing for the Edwards edition that a successful white developer would have been able to expect. It was an audacious, indeed unprecedented move for a person who was both black and female, and from remote, unpopulous Oklahoma. But Francis Edwards presented a blizzard of photos, documents, and records demonstrating the Edwards' record of construction productivity, sales success, and absence of mortgage defaults. Supremely impressed, the white officials of the Federal Housing Administration in Washington approved loans for Oklahoma City's Edwards Edition. This was the first FHA financing for a housing addition built by blacks for blacks ever greenlighted in the United States. The Edwards were far from finished. Hundreds of black military veterans were also streaming back into Oklahoma City from serving their country on the bloody, far-flung foreign fields of World War II. Despairing of homeownership, in many cases even of rental lodging, they swelled into a tent camp in Edwards Memorial Park, also founded by Walter and Francis. Hasman Heights, the Edwards quality building standards, the pioneer FHA financing, and these brave patriots' own determination to make good on their word catapulted scores of them into the heretofore impossible dream of quality homeownership. When they started building homes, the Edwards shrewdly created the Edwards Lumber Company in order to be able to access their own building materials without having to pay higher prices to an unnecessary middleman. But they not only accessed needed materials, they were also playmakers, Gwin. They also sought not only to match the status quo, but to master it, then innovate beyond it to something better, to raise the bar, not just in the so-called Negro community, but in American society. One example of that was the gold bond rock wool they offered to black and white and any other home buyers. In a time before home air conditioning, Edwards Lumber Company ads heralded this product, which could increase the cooling of summertime Oklahoma homes by up to 15%. In addition, ever thinking not only tactically as in recruiting C.T. Hasman to submit their Edwards Edition plans to the Oklahoma City City Council, but big picture strategically, they alertly perceived the opportunity to expand from productive home building to developing of an entire urban district, thus benefiting OKC's African American community in remarkable ways. New homeowners in a new neighborhood needed access to new product and service outlets. Among other initiatives, they masterminded a new ice cream store. In fact, they built an entire early day shopping center in the Near East Side African American community. That mall included a convenience store, a cleaners, an insurance company, and a barbershop.
And they were the first in the country. This is Oklahoma Gold. Dignifying our history by the stories we learn. John J. Dwyer, where was Edwards Memorial Park?
It was located, Gwin, at Northeast 16th in Oklahoma City in the intersection of modern-day Interstate 35. And in fact, over 2 decades there, they would build more than 800 single-family houses in that area. They made sure the homes were affordable as well as high quality. Ownership of them enhanced everything from the community children's school attendance to their parents' credit history. The Edwards further enriched their landmark addition with parks, churches, and schools. Around the end of World War II, however, Frances Edwards fell seriously ill. This frightening development, in which she faced possible death though doctors could not even determine the source of her illness, led to the Edwards' greatest accomplishment. You see, at that time, the only beds available in Oklahoma City hospitals for blacks were in their basement wards, which didn't typically provide the hospital's best care. A white physician told the Edwards that if Frances had any hopes of getting better, she needed a place that could provide her with the best possible treatment, better than the basement that provided the 30,000 African Americans of Oklahoma City with their only 89 hospital beds in the still segregated city. Well, without hesitation, Walter, ever the man of action, sent her to the renowned Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. There, she was successfully diagnosed, was operated on, and recovered. While grateful for all this, the Edwards realized that most others in the Negro so-called community would never have access to the Mayo Clinics of the world. They returned to the city to build the first black-owned and operated hospital in the South. Over the next several years, they depleted their life savings to pay for the hospital themselves. They spent more than $400,000 of their own money, an amount worth well over $5 million in 2020's currency. They built a beautiful beige brick building at the intersection of Northeast 16th and modern-day I-35. In a large illustrated article, the Oklahoman newspaper described Edwards Memorial Hospital as stretching across two wings, rising 3 stories high, and including 2 operating rooms, a delivery room, a spacious nursery, a general examination room, eye, ear, nose, and throat clinic, x-ray room and modern laboratory, diet kitchens, pediatric ward, and physical therapy room. Everyone was welcome there, Gwin, regardless of skin pigmentation. 26 white Oklahoma City doctors stepped up to help 13 black physicians and black physicians in training staff the operation, and indeed train many of them. James Johnson himself, the Edwards grandson, was born there. Construction and maintenance of the hospital also provided training and work for new black doctors, nurses, and lab technicians. Hasmond Heights had done the same for rookie black carpenters, electricians, bricklayers, and other skilled workers. The groundbreaking hospital structure rose on a site geographically segregated from blacks until the Edwards developed that housing addition and expanded the so-called colored town, as it was then called, far north of its original segregated boundaries. Even after the magnificent institution opened, Walter welcomed contributions only for patients who are unable to pay. He said it takes away your self-respect when you have to beg for help. The Edwardses improved life for everyone in Oklahoma City and many beyond. Until the end, Frances died in 1958 and Walter in 1972. They practiced their motto of, if you give your best to life, life will give its best to you. They helped everyone, Gwin, not least those many white doctors they gave the opportunity to be blessed by truly helping the marginalized in their growing city, finally. And what about the black folks? Remember that Hasmond Heights housing addition in Oklahoma City? Their great pioneering work in remote OKC? Walter and Frances Edwards built 800 bargain-priced, top-quality homes there. When advised by an FHA official, these houses are worth more than you're asking for, Walter agreed with the man, but he added, Negroes can't afford to pay any more. But he believed that if he helped others, they would rise to the occasion and respond in kind. By the third decade of occupancy, not one of the by then more than 600 homes in Hasmond Heights had been repossessed for delinquent payments.
What happened to Edwards Memorial Hospital?
Well, it actually operated until the early 1960s, and came a time where it basically wasn't needed anymore. The other hospitals in Oklahoma City began to evolve and to progress, and African Americans were welcome there in the best rooms with the best care and the best doctors. And like a lot of other institutions in the African American community, it served a magnificent purpose for a period of time, and then one day did such a good job that others came alongside and it kind of worked its way out of existence.
Building on a dream. These people were difference makers. Now that's Oklahoma Gold.